answer to you is when I actually landed the Chipotle account in 2003 and brought them to New York. So, early in the business, I was 3 years in, I had landed the Starbucks account. And I got pretty lucky. I was invited to a pitch. The senior person that invited me to that pitch completely clammed up in the meeting and actually had like a panic attack and couldn't really get his words out. So I kind of carried us through that meeting. I never thought we would win the business. They gave me an opportunity, which was, the opportunity of a lifetime. And the minute that somebody gives me an opportunity, I'm never going to let them down. I'm going to meet and exceed their expectations, which I did, which is why I showed up to move their offices when they were moving in a suit and tie in my mid-20s to help Starbucks move their office on a weekend. So, and by the way, we still represent Starbucks today. So it's going above and beyond.
Hey, it's a new world, gotta adapt to it. Innovation, information, more than the average. Rushing, please ignore the interruptions, cause this is digital discussions.
So we have a commercial real estate ninja on the podcast today. So this guy's name's Jayson Siano. He's repped F45, Clean Juice, Fresh & Co, Solid Core, V7, Squeeze, Dance Body. I mean, it goes on and on. He's a rep for Starbucks in New York City. So anybody that understands the level of effort it takes to work with these brands will understand that we are talking to a guy that has his black belt in his business. Jay's been a very long time friend. We met on digital and social channels. Actually, the first time I saw him was when he was with Chelsea Pites, who's also a very close friend of mine that I've known for years. I have her book, What to Post, right behind me. And they were at Gary V's, I think it was 2020, and they were chopping it up. And any friend of Chelsea is a friend of mine. And then actually I came into the office. Jamie Dodds, my commercial real estate wizard, told me about this guy on LinkedIn that was crushing it. We connected, ended up having a mutual connection through Ryan Serhant. And again, Jay's a guy I've watched for years, and he's a guy that shows up and does the work, earns the opportunities. But more than that, what we're going to dig into today, understands where the business is going. So not only has he earned these relationships, he's not just keeping them to himself. He's sharing how he's executing on a public level, where the industry is going, and his digital strategies. So I'm going to bring him onto the stream. The only thing I ask of all of you is go follow him on his channels and make sure you sub to this podcast so you don't miss any of our future guests. It's going to be epic. Jay, are you with us?
Right here, man. I loved that intro. Can you hear me? Are we good?
Got you, brother. Yeah, I don't know if I ever told you that about the connection with Chelsea before we actually met.
You know what's awesome about that? I am having lunch with Chelsea in Scottsdale, Arizona on Tuesday.
That is absolutely wild. So yeah, I mean, how did you both end up there? Did you know each other before you were at Gary V's event?
No, I mean, we might have corresponded through social previously, but I believe that we definitely met for the first time at Agent 2021.
Interesting. So what pushed you to go to Agent 2021? Maybe give the audience a bit of an understanding of what that event was.
Yeah, for sure. So it's interesting because being in the commercial real estate space, I actually believe that the commercial side of the real estate business is about a decade behind the residential side. But the interesting part about that is the commercial side thinks that they're like too cool for school and like, kind of like in some way, likes to be so proud that they're commercial and not residential. I personally am very inspired by the residential side of the business because I think the residential side does so many things better and more current, innovative, and futuristic than the commercial side. So that was the reason that I actually went to Agent 2021, because the real estate track for Agent 2021 was very residential. And I saw that as an opportunity to take what residential was already doing, apply it to my business, apply it to Sabre, and apply it, to the overall commercial side in a more meaningful way. And that's kind of the secret. I'm really not that smart. I'm really not that innovative. I'm just following people like yourself and Ryan Serhant, who you mentioned, and Chelsea, and, doing the things that you guys do so well. But I look like a genius on the commercial side.
It's hilarious. So a couple of things, I just throw some things at you, and I'd love your opinions on them. Issues that I have with the commercial real estate industry, trying to book a showing. A lot of times these guys aren't on any platforms. You got to go pick up keys at the office, do the showing, drive the keys back to the office. The inefficiency of that industry blows my mind, because if you're any good at your job, your time is valuable. So you think things like that would catch up. The lack of information, right? They won't tell you what a lease was signed for, because the only control they have is understanding the value of what the net was on that lease. For anybody that's watching this that isn't in the commercial space, equated to not being able to know what any house is sold for when you're trying to do comparables, right? But as hard as these people are holding on to an industry that, in my opinion, is 40 years old, more than a decade, it's changing, and you can't hold on to that information. What happened in 2012 in the residential market in the States is happening in Canada now, right? So thinking that you're going to be able to hold this information as your keys to the kingdom and they'll have to come through you, that's changing. Do you agree or disagree?
Oh yeah, big time. I mean, it's funny to hear you say like 40 years behind. I mean, I love hearing that, by the way. Like, by the way, it's an interesting perspective, because I like to say that real estate kind of chose me. It's not like I really like went through school, knowing that I was going to enter the real estate business. And, I am definitely not what a typical commercial real estate CEO kind of looks and acts like. So when I got into the industry, I was always just, I felt like I was kind of, a little bit of a outsider, or, had to act a certain way or feel a certain way. And it's because it was so traditional and very buttoned up and super corporate in a lot of ways. And, I think that the point that you just made about the sharing of information and the availability of data you're spot on. I mean, the fact that, everyone's so secretive and keeps this information close to their vest really hurts everybody. And that's why the industry is so ripe for disruption, because, the minute that this information is put onto a platform that everybody can access, it's going to make a lot of people in the industry irrelevant. Mm-hmm. And, that gatekeeper effect that definitely has changed on the residential side already will continue to change on the commercial side. So all of the things that I had been doing pre-pandemic, the pandemic was something that I was way more prepared for, I think, than a lot of my colleagues in the industry. And I actually dubbed 2019 Lean and Mean in 19, and I right-sized my company because I thought there was a good chance that we were long on the cycle and that things would change in 2020. Didn't know that a pandemic would actually come and, literally have the impact that we've never seen before. And I'm in the industry 20 years. But a lot of good actually came out of the pandemic for myself, for Sabre, for the digital army, because all the things that we thought would happen and people didn't really listen to, I think it gave us a lot more credibility, and people realized that the things we were doing were not really so futuristic, but current.
Well, I think it's supercharged industry, right? Like, I think it just advanced everything by, call it 15 years. Like, something that you and I were talking about on the back end, I'm sure many times, was the disruption and that this was coming, right? There's applications out there. You guys have had them in the States forever. I remember Ryan told me this. When I told him we didn't have sold data here, he was shocked.
Yep.
And it's only recently that consumers, now they have these apps that they look at, and it tells them what properties have sold for. And it also tells them what they may sell for based on the average over or asking price that they've fetched lately. And you should see it. Like, agents here are freaking out. And I'm telling my customers, I'm happy. I'm sending them the app. I'm like, you should totally use this, right? Like, this is going to allow us to have a more in-depth conversation about the statistics. Sure. You'll have the data. You may not be able to interpret it to the same level I will, but at least we don't have to catch up on that conversation. But I think it is going to make a lot of people irrelevant, that the only value they have is the access to the MLS. The MLS is a tool. These apps are a tool. I think it's refining your skill sets. And then going to the industry part of the conversation, businesses every 40 to 50 years. I mean, in the 50s, radio was where people advertised. You've heard Gary say this. It went to colored TV, and there was like a shift where 90% of the Fortune 500 lost market share, and everybody was fighting against TV. There's no way. This doesn't matter. How have you seen that progression now go from, say, TV, print, advertising to digital? Because it's the same thing. People said forever Facebook doesn't matter. Well, Facebook mattered. Instagram doesn't matter. Well, Instagram mattered. Now it's TikTok. Now it's all these other applications like Clubhouse. What have you seen in your time in the industry in terms of those massive shifts of attention?
Yeah, I mean, I think, we've never seen something close to this scale. As you said, the pandemic, all of a sudden the lights kind of went out and everybody was forced home and, had to figure out a new way to operate. And, the retail side of the business where I reside, where I spend the bulk of my time, has been evolving for as long as I'm in the business. I'm in the business 20 years. It's continued to evolve. There's just not as many retailers opening up thousands of locations that there once were. And oh yeah, by the way, this thing called the internet, had a major impact on a lot of goods and services, right? People were starting to not have to go to the bank as frequently as they used to, using their phones to deposit checks, adopting technology. And even the people that were kind of standing out, not looking to adopt early technologies, were forced to do things differently and start ordering things online right to their door. And, these are things, again, that we saw happening over time. The word omni-channel is so overused in our business that, it makes a lot of us sick to our stomach when we hear it. But it's a
define
reality.
omni-channel. I'd love to know your perspective on that word.
Yeah. So, listen, I mean, I think like anything else based on the evolution I was just describing, you have to be mindful of how you can get to your consumer now. And, that's what people are starting to understand more is, you could plant a physical location somewhere, but people may not even go to that store to shop, right? They may order online and pick up in store, or order online and have to exchange it or return it in store. And the concept of showrooming, became popular with brands like Bonobos and Warby Parker and other companies like that. But so omni-channel is really thinking about the full picture, the 360 degrees, and truly understanding like a strategy that incorporates your analog and your digital footprint essentially, and how you're going to service your consumer.
So how do you look at your analog and your digital footprint? Because I mean, I'm in the same boat, right? I'm in a physical office. I love having a culture, having a place to chop it up. I joke that this is our clubhouse. Like, we don't need it, but there is something real that's here when you're in the office and there's an energy. How do you look at your analog footprint and your digital footprint?
Yeah. So, I mean, when I started Sabre in 2010, we had about 4 offices at our height throughout the New York metro area. And South Florida as well. And then I started about 5 years ago, really looking at what I thought the future would look like for our industry, and more importantly to me, for Sabre, and where the opportunities were. And again, I realized that focusing on a smaller geography was very, very risky behavior for myself, because if I had too much of my eggs in that basket, and I know that now based on the pandemic, like New York was hit probably the worst in the States. So if I had not, designed that strategy 5 years ago, I mean, Sabre would be in very bad shape right now. Fortunately for us, during the pandemic, we did deals in 42 states, which is amazing, and something that I'm very proud of, especially considering the national advisory side of our business is only about 5 years old. So that statistic still blows my mind. But to answer your question, the physical footprint of our offices has shrunken over time, even pre-pandemic, intentionally. But during the pandemic, the first thing I did was downsize my largest office, my headquarters, basically in half. I adopted a completely virtual office space with Verbella. And by the way, when I first discovered Verbella, I thought it was gimmicky, and the fact that there were avatars and a completely virtual office space. I couldn't even imagine how amazing it would be. And actually, my partner and I were talking about this yesterday, because he's not based in this office either. And, as we continue to add bodies across the country, during the pandemic, I hired people in Ohio, in Texas, in Florida, in other parts of even, the New York metro area where we don't have physical offices. And I've never felt so connected to these people in my life, to the point that we actually had a physical dinner, met in person for the first time since the pandemic started, a group of us 2 days ago. And it was surreal in some ways, but I was so blown away when somebody mentioned that several of us had not seen each other physically in over a year. I would not have even been able to realize that if somebody didn't say that. So to answer the question again, I just really truly believe that you don't need the same office space that you did even pre-pandemic, and I was shying away from it before that. Everything that I was doing was accelerated by the pandemic, right? The same way that my industry was accelerated by the pandemic. So this isn't, in my opinion, rocket science. It's more just paying close attention and conversating with smart people and watching what Gary Vaynerchuk says, and following his lead and other innovators' leads on what's coming.
I think you hit the nail on the head in so many different ways. So I want to extrapolate some things for the people that are watching. One, I mean, you batten down the hatches, which was super smart out of the gate, right? The good indication of a leader, or when you're working with a tenant, and you probably realize this as well, is when you see that they're methodical, that they're not just running in thinking this idea is going to be amazing, we're going to crush it. They're a little concerned about the cost deployment and everything else that they're putting into their business. It usually means that they care about the people that are with them, right? Because they're taking some sort of responsibility. But at the same time, you also realize that right-sizing your space based on the impact that it had in your culture was crucial. I Googled Verbella when you mentioned it. I didn't even know it was a thing. And this is where these conversations really help each other level up, is when you see industry leaders like Jay doing things like that and looking at people that are actually doing the work. That's where you find inspiration, because there's lots of people that have opinions online and will tell you one thing or the other, but very infrequently are they actually doing things, right? You have a lot of people with opinions, but not a lot of people who are actually executing, trying things, and then not being afraid to adapt. And I think that's where I'm seeing a lot of success in your growth over the time I've known you, is this constant ability to adapt. You brought something up last week on a Clubhouse room about how you have a relationship with your commercial clients and buildings almost as if they're humans, right? Like you literally give them their own brand identity. You use those buildings to develop relationships within the community independent of Sabre, which is actually funny, because when a real estate agent calls somebody, everybody throws a wall up. But when a company calls somebody, it's a very different experience. Can you extrapolate that for people watching? Because I think it's just very, very high level.
Yeah, for sure. No, I appreciate it, because at the beginning of the pandemic, I had a lot more time on my hands than I'm used to having, because I'm typically putting out fires, prospecting, servicing clients, traveling, obviously, family time, very important. So my days are absolutely insanity, right? So when the pandemic did hit, regardless of the fact that I jumped right in and started up a bunch of different digital shows that I could, invite I actually started a concept called At Home with My Homies, and went to work literally the first day that everybody had to be home. I just jumped in with At Home with Our Homies, and you guys should check that out on Sabre's YouTube channel, Sabre Real Estate. It was a lot of fun, but I was doing 2 or 3 of these a day, just because I realized that when the lights went out, it was an opportunity for me to be a lot more capture a lot more eyeballs on mobile devices, because people were sitting on their couches with not much to do. So I figured I'd entertain them and become more top of mind. So that was my strategy there. I also discovered a couple of folks that were innovating quite a bit. And Carrie Bob is somebody that really intrigued me, somebody who's also 20 years in her commercial real estate career, based out of San Diego, California. And what Carrie discovered was that if she could take over the create or take over the Instagram handle of a property, that she could do specific things with, professional photography, videography, and amazing content creation. And then the property could actually become an ecosystem that would service the surrounding community. And in any community, you have micro, nano influencers that could be very helpful in placemaking, which is a lot of what we do on the development side of the commercial real estate space. It's how do we make this property unique? How do we give this thing a pulse? How do we make this property special? And you can't just put in a whole bunch of big national tenants that one after the other. You can't just have an Ulta Cosmetics next to a Soul Cycle, next to a, Target, next to a TJ Maxx, next to, right? Like if you start putting out all of those types of projects into the universe, they're going to get really stale and boring. And I feel like today that's never been more true. So Carrie was doing this within her brokerage company. And I spoke to Carrie and said, listen, based on the fact that I have a digital marketing company and a background that goes beyond commercial real estate, I said, I think that you're going to run into a few problems here based on, how this business is set up within your brokerage. Because the first thing I'm going to think about is, if this company offers this service, but they're also in brokerage, the brokers that represent properties are going to tell the landlord not to hire you, because basically you're really a digital media company on that side of the business. That pillar is digital marketing. It has nothing to do with real estate. You're not earning fees. So why are you, putting yourself in that position? And, she was really blown away with, what I had to tell her. And as you know, when you're speaking to somebody that's very successful and innovative, and doing things that, that are kind of changing the world quite a bit, you have to be careful about it, how you approach that subject. And she could have easily told me to F off, but, fortunately, she realized that I had thought through that process. And we launched Hello Jenny during the pandemic. Hello Jenny's the kind of 2.0. It's probably the 4.0 version of what Carrie was doing before we connected. And it's been going like stunningly well. We're very excited about it because it helps everybody. It helps the owner. It helps the brokers, right? And we're brokers. We want to help brokers do their job better, right? So fortunately, based on the fact, again, that it's a marketing tool, Hello Jenny has nothing to do with real estate fees, right? So we're Scottie Pippen. We're not Michael Jordan. We're leading the league in assists. We're passing the ball to the leasing team essentially, and trying to pull up a new seat at the table that didn't exist. So very excited about that business.
I love it. And you're going into an industry, like I said early on, was challenging, right? Like we do it in our space too, where, we're competing with the large multinational real estate firms and winning mandates on a regular basis. But then when we go in to work with them on a file, we want to have that collaboration. We want to show them that we care more about doing a good long-term business than just making a little bit more money on a file. There was one that Jamie and I were recently talking about where, our marketing efforts brought up a tenant. Another broker came into the transaction at the last second. And it's funny because the landlords, commercial landlords, sometimes think it's all about fees. They think it's agents. They think the agents are all they care about is their money. And I remember having a conversation with this landlord and I'm like, I don't care. I didn't even look at how much we're making on it. Like, I genuinely don't care. I want this guy to feel like he is loved, because the next time you give me a project, I want him running to me to do business with me because it was so easy. I made him look like a hero in front of his client. I didn't say disparaging things to make that guy or posture, because that is a problem in the industry as a whole. Is there's a lot of egos in real estate where, I think people can get ahead of themselves and use short-term thinking to their detriment. When you're building relationships, I guess with landlords and with agents, what are the things that have helped you work at the level you've worked at? Because again, I'll reiterate for people that are watching this dude reps companies like Starbucks and Orange Theory and F45. And these are not brands that take their representation lightly, right? If those companies are hiring somebody, they obviously want to know that they're well represented and they're going to be able to work with a lot of different people. So to reiterate my question, what are the key things that you've done as you've built these relationships that really set you apart?
Yeah, I mean, it's easy, man. When you were talking earlier, something came to mind. I truly believe money doesn't lead, it follows, right? So that was challenging for me when I had just lost my mother, decided to jump into this business that's 1099. You don't have health insurance. In some cases, you're taking a draw, so you're actually going into debt before you're actually ever making money. So, for me, it's always doing the right thing. And I like to say that I'm in the human development business. I also happen to be really good at real estate. And that's really what it is for me. So ultimately, I'm always looking out for the best interest of the client. I kill more deals than I make. But at the same time, in my opinion, credibility and reputation are everything. So, but I'm also at a point now where, I'm not looking to work with everybody. At 20 years into my career, we want to be able to help the right companies and people that that mesh with us, that, that vibe with us, that get us, and that we understand and truly, can add value to. So, I've also gotten a lot more just honest with myself and my team about, is this a good fit for us? Like, can we actually, most importantly, can we meet and exceed the client's expectations? But it's a luxury to get to that point of your career, right? I don't take for granted at all the fact that, like, not too long ago, I was just, looking for the next possible building to put a sign on so people could, see the logo Sabre and, build brand, and when I started out building that brand in New York Metro, it was so funny, dude, because like the company to me was already so big. Like, it's almost like time just was, didn't get there yet, but it already happened. And I really always kind of looked at it that way and manifested it that way. But I also approach life that failure is not an option, and I'm going to do anything in my power. I'm going to be the hardest working person in the room, because at the end of the day, you could do all types of branding and marketing. You could leverage social media in amazing ways. But if you don't work your ass off, and if you're not literally 24/7 grinding your face off and helping other people win, I take so much money out of my pocket to help people around me. Because at the end of the day, I could scale back and I could reduce overhead. And to your point earlier, when we were talking about office space, the easiest way for me to reduce overhead and not have to get rid of people, right, was to reduce fixed costs like rent, right? So again, I the last thing I want to do is have to, tell people that I can't afford to pay them anymore, or this isn't working simply because I need to drive a Lamborghini, or I need to, I need to increase my lifestyle. So it's all of those things. It's really, I play the very long game. This is a marathon for me. I have, Andy Frisella, aggressive patience. Like, I am probably the most patient person you'll ever meet in terms of decades, but I am the most impatient person as far as a 24-hour period. So I am jamming as much as I possibly can into 24 hours. But if you told me it's going to take me the next 50 years of my life to achieve success, I'm cool with that.
I love
it,
man.
Again, I don't know what success is, right? Like,
100%.
There are plenty of people around me, like, talk to me as if I'm not successful. So I'm not sure if I am.
It's funny you say that, because I was having a discussion with my wife recently about a billionaire that we were talking about, and you could see the lack of purpose in that gentleman's life. And I said to her, I'm like, I don't want it. I said, if you turn around and gave me $1 billion tomorrow, I said, you can't work anymore, I probably wouldn't want it, because I wouldn't have a purpose anymore. I think the wealthiest people that you and I know are the people that have a clear purpose in life and are serving other people. And heavy lies the crown. I think sometimes people think that we do what we do just because we want to make more money, and that's quite the opposite. Who cares? At the end of the day, I think, you can't take it with you, but what's the legacy that you're leaving? And the conversation that you mentioned about, seeing your logo and thinking years ahead. I recently said to somebody, there's a huge company in the States coming to Canada now, and they're like, oh, are these guys a threat to you? And I said, maybe I'll buy them one day. And They laughed. But in my mind, I'm like, no, I'm dead serious. Like, in my mind, my company is much larger than they could possibly think, and my ambitions are a lot bigger than I think. But you touched on something that an audience member asked a question about, and it was what's getting you there. And you already spoke to it a little bit, but Kyle Henry asked, would you have any specific pieces of feedback for somebody in their first year looking to find their stride? Kyle is a guy on my team that does the work. He's in new home construction. He came from a $14 billion recruiting company, is a monster at attrition, but he's new, right? Yep. So what advice would you give him? Like, what were the key factors, I guess, that would help you kind of grab your stride?
Yep. Before I answer that, are we good? Yeah, that's perfect. They're good?
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's real life, everybody. That's the life of somebody that is actually doing business, is putting out fires.
You know what? I mean, by the way, like, that is like, that's got to be like my superpower, is the fact that, like, you have to realize that if you jam as much as you possibly can into a day, right? If you get up earlier and you work later and figure out how to, like, actually achieve that work-life balance, which to me is just lifestyle, that's the magic. I think you really move mountains that way. But Kyle, the easiest answer is a one-word answer, and it's patience. And I say that because you're with Justin. So, the reality is I might have answered this differently if I didn't know that you were working on his team. I might have said, go out and find somebody that that's operating at a very high level that you could link up with and learn from, because that's the first thing, right? Like, at the end of the day, if you're not attached to or surrounded by people that are really, really, really good at the things that you one day strive to be really, really good at, you're wasting time, because there's only so much that even the smartest people on the planet can actually teach themselves. And I feel like, the one thing that we cannot replace is time. So not being lined up with the right team is probably the biggest waste of time ever, and not learning from, people that have already gotten to the place that one day desire to get. But I also have built myself into this lovely patchwork quilt of many different people that I admire and aspire to be more like. So I will tell you that you also need to look at many different people, and they don't need to be people that in the physical form, especially with the amount of access that we have to information. So study, be a student of everything, and understand what it is that you could possibly pursue, that every day you wake up and work your tail off doesn't really feel like work.
Phenomenal answer. Who are some of those people that you're a patchwork quilt of? I'd love to know some of the names, and I'll give them some shout outs and some tags after the episode.
Yeah, I mean, in the commercial real estate space, it's funny because I started off, they wouldn't be people that you would recognize, but people early in my career that were really, really good at landing very impressive clients, and servicing those clients in a maniacal way. And I have to mention Beth Lamport, who has since passed away, and she was somebody that was just really, really amazing at our job, and I studied her very closely initially.
So I'll pause you for a quick second. So what made her amazing? Because the way you're speaking about her, like, what would be her superpower?
Her superpower, in we obviously roll out a lot of national brands in any given market. She focused very specifically on the New York area, but she was very good at thinking like the tenant, right? And I learned from her that I approach every company that I'm working with, I approach as if I own the business. And that has been the best thing for me ever, because I will challenge people that are, telling me exactly what they want. And I'm not challenging them in a way that I'm either arrogant or right. But when I ask them questions, a lot of times it'll throw people off, because they could have 150 successful locations. And one of the first questions I ask them is, what's your exit strategy? And they look at me like, no, I'm not sure. Like, why do you ask? Like, we're killing it. Why are you asking me my exit strategy? What's your goal? Like, what are your goals? Are you looking to grow this thing for the next 5 years and sell it to private equity for 500 million? Or do you want to die running this business? I'm just curious. And honestly, if I don't know the answers to that, how am I going to be able to help you, achieve your goals, right? So I kind of start with that stuff. So yeah, I mean, and I learned that. I'm not sure exactly who I learned that from, but it was definitely somebody in the finance world. I spend a lot of time in different spaces outside of real estate for inspiration, and and definitely, again, on the branding and marketing and social media and all that stuff. If I was following commercial real estate people and their guidance on that stuff, I'd be pretty lame. So, there's lots of people, man. I'm such a student of consumer behavior, is kind of where I spend most of my time studying psychographics, demographics, mobile GPS data, which is kind of, freaky stuff when you get into it, but it's all, it's done by block group and it's anonymous. But, for my clients, I can just, draw a box around their existing location and understand the exact demographics and psychographics of the folks that are entering their store and where they're coming from and where they're going after. And that type of stuff is absolutely insane, because pre-AI technology and all of the new, data that we have access to, this was all done in a very, we had to do it all manually, and there was a lot of, a lot of hypotheses and, theses that, we would approach these programs with, but ultimately, the data speaks volumes, but it's the art and the science, right? The data is never going to replace my knowledge. The data is never going to, tell you that, that's all well and good, but there's a cemetery there that takes up 19 acres and dead people are not coming to your store anytime soon, so all types of things that I think will need to continue to stay humanized, in the real estate space, in our space for sure. But the role of an advisor will continue to change.
Well, I think there's an incremental amount of value, right? So when Prime's doing their global takeover and I call somebody like yourself, it's easy for me to call somebody. You've already done the legwork. You're the expert. I'm happy to pay you whatever you want. I won't discount your fee because the knowledge that you've accrued and the systems you put in place save me time. And I think a lot of people do not understand what's happening with technology, whether it be blockchain or these other technologies that are coming down the pipeline, where you can't skew the data. Back in the day, you could say this was the number one TV show because it was a survey that went out to everybody, and whether they filled it out honestly or not, or never filled it out at all. There was a funny quote I heard once of, I don't necessarily want the data that comes from anybody that would answer a survey, because I wouldn't answer a survey. You probably wouldn't answer a survey. So not sure how reliable that data is, but a lot of things like we're talking about in terms of sales data becoming public, things like the blockchain and the ledgers that are going to just become public information, allow people to work at a higher level. And the shift in focus and skill sets and skill developments is really what's moving the needle. You've killed it on the marketing side. I know this is a skill that you've built over the last decade, but I also see you looking into what's next, right? Because we're doing the same thing. Like working with builders and new dev is surprisingly similar to commercial. Probably thinking about it because Kyle's on the call, but when we're in the commercial space, and we were talking about that earlier, the lack of information and collaboration and just how it's such a closed-minded group, new development's the exact same thing here. So everybody wants to double end sales on the new dev side because builders pay less commission than you would on a resale deal, which is unfortunate. We always cooperate. We never tell people all year, we're going to keep that person because they didn't fill out a form telling us that you were their agent. We're just not those people. I don't care. To be frank with you. And I've had people in that industry tell me like, why are you changing things? Like, this is how it's always been done. I'm like, that's great. The consumer is starting to realize how it is. So the offering that we're bringing the builders is no longer doing transactional work because the builders can do that. The market's good. They can hire a 17-year-old out of high school, put them in an open house and not even have to hire an agent, right? We can provide the marketing service. The builders can probably do that on their own too. Our value proposition is changing, and what we're looking at doing in terms of providing research and analytics and saving time and calling 1,200 leads for them so they don't have to put out those fires, and communicating with people so that the builders aren't getting the phone calls. That's what they pay us for, is to save them time and be the experts. So when they turn around and say, what can I build here? They can trust us to say, this is what you can build here. These are the types of people, and this is how we're going to do it. Awesome. They don't have to think about us. So my question to you after all of that is, since I know what your base looks like and you're such a killer in that space, what is the next evolution that you see coming? Or what is that 20% of your effort that you're deploying against a maybe that you see coming down the pipeline?
Yeah. So, first and foremost, what you just described to me is the role of a trusted advisor, right? So, I think that's the biggest, kind of evolution of my business. Was initially, I always referred to ourselves as commercial real estate brokers. And at a certain point, that broker word just didn't sound right to me. And I was like, wait a minute. So, I have a financial advisor that I trust with my money, and I'm advising people. I'm in the business 20 years, and I'm giving them as much advice as possible, which oftentimes, like I said, kills deals, right? So I'm really an advisor, right? So my role actually has transitioned completely into being a advisor for founders, entrepreneurs, C-suite executives, and real estate strategy and rollout, strategy is one part of, one component of what we do, right? So for me, I have additional businesses that actually encompass everything that goes into scaling your business, doing capital raise, staffing, operational things that have nothing to do with real estate, construction management, things of that nature. And that is, I think, really where the real estate industry is going. It's what you described to me, right?
Sure.
So it actually got to a point where the word broker to me has a negative connotation. I get a little insulted by it. It's a 4-letter word in my vocabulary because you know what? There are a lot of people that give that term a bad name, right? It's the same people that that you're talking about that are not looking to participate and cooperate with other people who are going to get the other side of the deal. That is such a short-term, like scarcity, like mindset. And I just laugh at people who operate that way because again, I'm playing the long game, right? Like this is all about I so much enjoy the process that to your point, it's like, I wouldn't want that $1 billion check either right now because I wouldn't know what to do with myself, right? So I really think everything in the world is going to, change, and there's just not going to be as many humans necessary that there are right now to do anything. Doesn't matter if it's real estate, sales, leasing, it doesn't matter what it is. There's not, with all of the data and technology and computers that exist and don't yet exist, and robots and everything else that's coming, and self-driving cars and anything else that is coming, like there are going to be many, many humans that are replaced by automated things. And I live in fear every day of going out of business. It's why I transitioned my weekly vlog from Real Sabre 3 years ago to Future Proof, right? Because I realized, and actually Ryan Serhant was on the first episode of Future Proof, and we talked about the traditional brokerage model, and that, and it was almost like he was alluding to, launching his own company one day. But it's like, it just, I live in fear, man. Like that's where my drive comes from. It's not like I don't grind the way that I do again, so I could buy a nicer this or a nicer that. I grind because I'm afraid of going out of business. I'm afraid of not being able to feed my family. And that to me, like when the pandemic happened, again, I was like, holy shit, thank God I like actually live in fear every day. Like I today woke up with the same motivation and drive that I did when I was starving 20 years ago, didn't have a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out of. None of that has changed. Like, a nicer car has not changed that drive because that car can go away really easily. Everything can go away really easily. So, I think that is my advice to any audience that's watching this is, no company is too big to fail, and no business or person is too small to change the world.
The biggest mistake new agents make, I just did a YouTube video on this, was believing their own hype, right? And just thinking that it's easy and not realizing it's difficult. But at the same time, what you just explained was a day one mentality. I wake up every day trying to put myself out of business because that's the job. I remember I had an identical conversation with Ryan, not aired publicly, but it was around the value of a brokerage, right? And what that looked like. And I think it's just an indication that the industry is changing and things are going in a different direction. And the value proposition of what a true advisor is versus a salesperson or broker is a conversation that needs to happen, because I know there's consumers out there that think, well, I can hire you or 1,800 other people in the marketplace, and they think that we're interchangeable. But truthfully, we're not. There's a lot of clients out there. There's a lot of agents out there. Not everyone is built for every single one, and that is okay. But the skill sets can be very, very different, and what you're getting is going to be very different. And I think when things change and there is going to be a disruption of technology where not every single person in the supply chain is going to be needed, I think that's going to drive opportunity, because you're going to have people that are maybe super passionate about surfboards that are working a, $50,000 or $60,000 a year job, miserable in an office, that they're going to leave, maybe start a YouTube channel about surfboards. They're going to blow up, and that's their job. You and I, yeah, 100%, dude. Like, you have an affinity for sneakers. I wore this shirt because of you. I was gearing up for today, and I'm like, you know what? I think Jay would appreciate this. I was at the beach this morning, living life, right?
Absolutely. I love it. But that's the thing. But that's what everything's being kind of decentralized, right? That's blockchain, right? Like NFTs, are super interesting. And I think the same way that like we develop our personal brand, which is really just, our reputation. And I think the folks that are really comfortable putting it all out there and being on camera and speaking the same way that we would whether there was a camera there or not are the ones who really understand how to make an impact. Like at the end of the day, Justin, like I'm probably further along, Sabre's further along than I probably really anticipated it would ever get. And for me, it's really about having a positive impact and changing my industry, because I don't want people to have to go through what I went through to make it. And, for me, I talk about this a little bit more now than I used to. I was never really open to talking about how, challenging it was for me when I started in the business right after losing my mom. And, I was having like such bad panic attacks and crazy anxiety and, having to find myself as a person in my early 20s with, no real support system around me, because like when my mom passed, my dad moved to Florida and I was just basically on my own, trying to figure out life at that time. And that's a very critical transition from like college to the real world, when you don't have your identity's not firmed up yet. You don't have the confidence that you would if you were already successful or settled into something, and so on and so forth. So, I think part of like my living in fear of everything, being taken away, and waking up every day knowing that there's people nipping at my heels, that are working harder than me, that are smarter than me, that are better looking, that are more charismatic, and all that stuff. I that's, also what motivates me. But the thing is, at the same time, I really don't see anybody as competition. So it's, for me, it's all about collaboration. Like whoever it is out there that sees me as their biggest competition, I would call up tomorrow, hang out with, give all of my trade secrets to, educate, train as much as I possibly could, and say, yo, let's work together. Let's do some deals. There's enough for everybody, right?
I heard something this morning and it was phenomenal. It speaks exactly what you just said. I've never met a winner that spends a second of their time tearing down another winner or even paying attention to what another winner is doing to a very big extent. But there are a lot of losers who spend a lot of time tearing down winners and not actually doing anything but spending their time looking at their stuff on the phone. So
sad though, right?
It is, man. But we can change it like through this content. And when I say losers, I don't mean that in a mean way. I mean, man, like if you're spending your time in a hole of negativity, like I've been through places that we probably have more in common than you may think. I want to pull people out of there, right? I want to help people understand that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. You can have positivity in your life. You can be self-deprecating. You can laugh at yourself. You can have fun. You can find beauty in the struggle. You can find beauty in the success, but it is perspective. And we need people like you, I think, out there, especially in an industry that can be so buttoned up as commercial real estate, moving the needle in a big way. I got two more questions. I'm going to be respectful of your time because I know you got lots to do. Phenomenal conversation. We got Iris Vanderplug. She's in commercial actually, and she's a monster. How do you suggest a new commercial real estate agent should canvas national brands like the ones you work with? Look at her going straight for the jugular. I love it. That's awesome.
No, I love that question. And I'd love to connect offline so we could have a more in-depth connection. And I'd love to, give you the insights on really how to do it. But, first and foremost, you gotta kind of start somewhere, right? So you like baby steps. Somebody like myself could really give you specific advice and guidance based on, what it is that you're focused on now, where you live, the type of business that you would like to work on, because, national brands like a Jiffy Lube, account is very different than working on the Lululemon account, and I lean more towards the Lululemon, the sexy kind of emerging concept stuff that I'm proud to actually, work with. I would imagine that you're in that same boat where you'd probably prefer to be working with Lululemon over Jiffy Lube. By the way, Jiffy Lube's an awesome account, and Sabre would absolutely, please do. But Sabre as a whole works on all different types of businesses. The tools that you would need in order to do that well, I can share with you. But the reality is, I will like everything that we do is very, I do the entire, I probably shouldn't show this map actually, but I do the entire strategy. My answer to you is when I actually landed the Chipotle account in 2003 and brought them to New York. So, early in the business, I was 3 years in, I had landed the Starbucks account. And I got pretty lucky. I was invited to a pitch. The senior person that invited me to that pitch completely clammed up in the meeting and actually had like a panic attack and couldn't really get his words out. So I kind of carried us through that meeting. I never thought we would win the business. They gave me an opportunity, which was, the opportunity of a lifetime. And the minute that somebody gives me an opportunity, I'm never going to let them down. I'm going to meet and exceed their expectations, which I did, which is why I showed up to move their offices when they were moving in a suit and tie in my mid-20s to help Starbucks move their office on a weekend. And by the way, we still represent Starbucks today. So it's going above and beyond. But with Chipotle, when I discovered Chipotle, when I was visiting friends in Los Angeles, I literally sat down at my desk when I got back and I studied as much about the concept as possible. I learned that lunch was extremely important to them, lunch and dinner, and in suburban markets, parking was extremely important and whatnot. So I designed the entire strategy for my market before I even picked up the phone and pursued them trying to start that conversation. So I knew that if I was willing to put in that work and that time and energy and create the strategy up front without ever knowing if I'd be able to work with them or not, I would never lose that time, right? Because even if I didn't get the Chipotle account, my brain thinking in that way and learning how to process that stuff was very valuable for me, especially at that stage of the business. So it's that, but it's also, I could tell you other things that are way more specific that you need to take into consideration when pitching a national account. Which
you knocked it out of the park. I think people in this industry are funny. They think, oh, I showed that house, wasted my time. They didn't buy it. I'm like, now I have market knowledge. I want to get in every house out there so that when I'm getting a listing on that street, I've been in the houses, right? It's all perspective. One last question. Sorry, go ahead.
Really quickly though, but that is the difference maker.
Yeah.
You have to realize if you plan to win the end game, right? The marathon, forget the sprint. If you want to finish first in the marathon, you have to understand that even something that could potentially be the biggest waste of time ever that does not put money in your bank account is not a waste of time.
100%.
You're a student of everything.
Forever. Exactly. That is one of the best quotes. Eric, you chop that up into micro content. I want that quote. Kyle actually had another question one more time. He was asking about how your specific market was impacted, especially in the commercial space. I think I'll just reframe that question because it was what burning question I had. And I think a burning question everybody watching this probably has. Office and retail. What are your thoughts about the current state of things and the evolution or the future of office and retail commercial space?
Yeah, for sure. To answer his question first, more specifically, again, just kind of piggybacking on what I said earlier. Fortunately, 5 years ago, I was smart enough to realize that I needed to expand nationally. If I did not do that, and I had to answer this question, I might not be doing it with a Sabre sign behind me. We might have been out of business if I was 100% in New York. So guys, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Every market was totally impacted differently. You mentioned, Justin, that I spend a lot of time in Florida. I do. I spend a lot of time everywhere. When I went to Florida 3 times with my family since the pandemic started, and Florida was open for business practically the entire time. It was almost like COVID didn't exist. And that market has been on fire the entire time. Now, New York City is absolutely crushed. I'm in the business 20 years, through many downturns. 9/11 was a little before I started in the business, right before I started. But New York City was decimated. I don't care what people say. New York City, almost every storefront in certain corridors is vacant. And if anybody says otherwise, they just own buildings that they want you to think that they were not as impacted as they are. To answer your question, Justin, everything has been changing over time and evolving over time. The pandemic accelerated everything that was already happening. A lot of people think, love that, Lindsay, couldn't agree more. A lot of people think that the retail world was crushed by the pandemic, when people like myself, who are experts in the retail space, are actually doing backflips and cartwheels that some of the tired retailers that are far past their expiration are finally potentially going out of business. And I'm never rooting for other people's demise or other companies' demise, but when companies are just not innovating and adopting new technology and understanding how this new world operates, it's their fault, not mine. Blockbuster versus Netflix. They could have bought Netflix for nothing, decided not to because they thought people would rent videos in their store forever. Stupid. Office space. Personally, I told you at the beginning of this that I was looking for any excuse to downsize my office space to begin with. I think that everybody is going to adopt a hybrid of working in the office and working from home, or working from, more importantly, this thing anywhere, which I could do on a full-time basis at this point, especially now with my virtual office in the cloud, where I literally will go into anybody's office at my company, regardless of where they are, with my little avatar, walk in and start talking to my computer the way I am right now. And there is seamless communication. Oh, and by the way, we could bump into each other in the hallway and talk about what we did this past weekend, and not just about business 24/7. So I think that is the most crazy missing component of being able to be truly virtual and in the cloud. And we've solved for that now. So I don't see office space ever coming back the same way that it was pre-pandemic. I think that anybody that I know that convinced themselves that they loved being in the office 24/7 early pandemic are the same people now, my friends, that tell me they wish they never had to go back to the office. So I think it's anywhere in between, whatever works best for you based on the industry that you're in.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, and again, the marketplace, ultimately, if a product isn't serving the consumers and the world, is going to adapt. It is going to either push certain things in or push certain things out. I think office space is the same thing. I mean, if I flip this camera around, this doesn't even look like an office. Truthfully, like it's got a big harvest table in the middle. We come in here, we hang out. It's a podcast studio, and it's kind of an office, and it's a place where you can hang out, grab coffee, eat. We did events here before COVID where we'd have 40, 50 people in here just jamming on investing, connecting people with people. Truthfully, it was a means to an end from that standpoint, more than it was just, hey, this is where you go to work and you have to be here from 8 to 5 p.m. It just, I don't think the world's going to be like that anymore. I think people are going to go places where there's purpose and passion. And does it add something to your world? And if it doesn't, who knows? Maybe office towers are going to turn around and get repurposed for residential development because there's a massive lack of housing and there's a huge demand for housing. So the marketplace will ultimately level the entire playing field one way or another. I think it's where people are going to adapt in the in-between.
We sorry to interrupt, but yeah, we didn't touch on industrial, which obviously is on fire because you know all of the companies that are expanding and internet-based companies are obviously need more warehouse space, and it's all logistics and whatnot. So I think that that's a very relevant thing, and a lot of the tertiary malls, that are just not going to do anything moving forward will turn into
drop shipping points. And I agree 1,000%, dude. The one thing that's funny, and we see this pattern in real estate, in marketing, and in real life. I mean, businesses ruin everything because something becomes popular and everybody starts doing it, like Facebook advertising, or they're all on Instagram, and it gets overwhelmed and you can't get through the noise anymore. So you move to platforms like Clubhouse, or you do different things. It's the same thing in the real estate market, where industrial got, kind of popular with the first movers, 3-4 years ago. And then this just ramped that up. Well, the economics of things is, as areas level out and it becomes affordable, it's a great opportunity for anybody looking to just chop it up and open up a business in New York where you could never open up a storefront, to get in and start now. Because who knows in 10 years that swing's not going to go the other way, and people are going to get just sick and tired of just getting Amazon boxes delivered to their door, and they're going to want to meet somebody face to face and talk to the guy who made the recipe, whose family's been doing it for 50 years. Because there is something to New York. When I visit it, there's a cadence, there's a music to it, the noise, the speed. I was in Toronto and I saw kind of that coming back, where like there is something to that, right? There is an art to it that it will stand the test of time. I just think you will see these massive swings in the next couple decades coming through, where the marketplaces are adapting to what consumers actually want.
Yeah, but that's exactly what you're spot on. I'll leave you with two things. Like you have to deliver a different value proposition. You have to be special on some level. You have to be entertaining, right? Like in a lot of ways, retail is entertainment now.
Yeah.
And that's going to be, I think, very, very important on a moving forward basis. I'll tell you one last story, and it's why I always laughed at people in my industry saying that the internet's not going to really impact our industry. For the last 20 years, I've been hearing that, and it's just comedy. But I actually wanted to replace the grates in my barbecue, and I went to Home Depot. Okay, I took a trip to Home Depot with my son and bought some grates that looked like they'd fit perfectly. And I get home with the grates, and sure enough, they were not the right grates. So what did I have to do? I went back finally this time with the model number and everything else. And I said, excuse me, can I exchange these for the proper ones? They looked it up on the computer. Oh, no, I'm sorry. We don't have those in the store. You have to order them online.
Amazing.
How much time did I waste
100%.
going to the physical store, assuming that they would have everything in stock? The reality is today, they're not stocking most things. So what does that do to even a Home Depot? It's good. The footprints of these big stores are going to continue to shrink, because why go to the store when they're just going to ship it direct to you and you'll have it next day, even if it's something the size of a barbecue or what? That's easy. It's crazy.
It's bananas. But yeah, we are 50 minutes over. I knew this would happen because you are a monster, and I love where these conversations go. They're always amazing. I know we've been friends for a long time. We've never actually met in person. That's the craziest part, is I feel like you're my brother. But everybody, please, please, please go follow this man. Go watch his back episodes of Future Proof. Please engage, comment, tell the algorithm what's up. I mean, you can go back and watch his past episodes of him walking through the Hamptons, talking about New York, in Florida, everything that he's breaking down here. It's unbelievable. I'll drop it in the YouTube replay of this. I appreciate you so much, brother. Do you want to drop, if you had that billboard that everybody could see in perpetuity long after you're gone, what would that billboard say? And we'll leave on that note.
Yeah, you know what? Just help pull other people up as much as you possibly can. You'll benefit from that in spades. Do not think that by somebody else winning that there's less for you. There's more.
Collaboration over competition, man. And yeah, I'm excited. We'll have some fun conversations moving forward, and I appreciate you for doing this.
I appreciate you, and thank you for the kind words. I feel the same way, obviously, and I cannot wait until we actually do meet in person. That's going to be epic.
It will happen 100%. Thank you so much for watching. Hit that subscribe button so you do not miss any future episodes of incredible people like Jay. I will have him back on, I promise you. So go to his channel, follow him, and we'll see you next time.
This is Digital Discussions.